Hello fellow collectors and welcome to Long's Toys. Today we are taking a look at the Banished Ghost with Elite Warlord from the World of Halo scale of figures from Wicked Cool Toys. You can see it says Halo Infinite down here. I believe the first wave of these toys was definitely modeled after Halo Infinite, but I wouldn't know because the game's still not out yet. So these toys have been out for some time, but unfortunately the game is still not out. But they do some really nice toys here. I was really excited when I heard that they were making the Ghost because it's definitely one of my favorite vehicles from the series. And very excited to check it out in figure form. Packaging, pretty lackluster. I mean, it's just that same running shot of Master Chief on the back. And you can see it's just kind of green around. There's not really anything going on. I'm really surprised that they don't have like a, other figures in the line, kind of like an also available section. But they just kind of keep it bland and simple. I will say if they do a second wave of these, they really do need to work on the packaging because it's a little lackluster in my opinion. But the figures inside are actually pretty cool. So let's go ahead, let's get them out of the box, and let's take a closer look. So here's everything you get in the box. There is some assembly required. We'll get into that a little bit when we get into the Ghost. Let's take a look at the Elite Warlord first. He looks pretty cool. Some of the joints are kind of loose though. I will say I feel like the hips, the ball joints in the hips are from certain angles very loose, but then kind of like turning them this way, it's not too bad. Also, you can basically knock the head off without really trying. The ball joint, for whatever reason, is kind of loose. I mean, I guess that you could simulate battle damage or, him getting killed by Master Chief, but it pops on very easily, and you can move it around. It falls off very easily. As soon as I took it out of the packaging, it popped off. But it is just a ball joint, so you have a ball joint here in the head. You have a hinge and a rotation in the shoulders, but unfortunately because of the shoulder pads, it kind of hinders the movement. And also it can't really go down any farther than this, which would be nice, especially when you're trying to get him to drive the Ghost. So, I don't know, I think it's because of the way the angle here of his armor and the shoulder pad, just not a lot of clearance there. I mean, you can move it all the way around, no problem, but the hinge just doesn't really get a lot of mobility because of how it's set into the body like that. You do have a hinge and a rotation at the elbow, and then you have a hinge and a rotation at the wrist. You do have some kind of movement here in the waist, but it's very tight and doesn't really want to move all that much. Master Chief was kind of the same way. You have a ball joint, like I said. You can see how it's very tight, kind of moving forward and back, but then once you kind of get out to the side, it's a little bit looser, which is weird. So there's a ball joint there, and then there's a thigh swivel right below that. You have a swivel and hinge here and here, so it's kind of like double jointed knees, because you have the movement there as well as the swivel, and then you have the movement here as well as the swivel to give him that kind of bent backwards knee joint look, which is pretty cool. And then you do have some movement here in the ankle, but again, because of how much it's kind of set into the leg, it doesn't really move all that much. There is a hinge and a rocker, but you can't really get much movement out of it because of how close it is to the rest of the leg. So there's not too much going on there. He does come with the sword accessory, which looks really good, and you can see it fits into his hand very easily. So I do like that. So it's not a perfect figure, and it could just be mine. I mean, it could just be some quality control issues. And if you pick this up, maybe you won't have loose joints like I do, and hopefully your head won't fall off just by looking at it. I mean, it's kind of funny. Like, sometimes it's on there perfectly fine, like right now, but you can easily pop it right off. So it's not a huge problem. It's not like it's so loose that it's going to fall off. And it's a pretty good looking figure. Honestly, it's not a bad looking figure. And when you get it to pose like that, I think it looks pretty good. It's just a couple of little things like loose joints and things like that. But overall, I'm pretty happy with it. So now we move on to the Ghost itself. And this is definitely where I think this set shines. They did a really nice job with this. I've really been liking all of the vehicles that they've been doing for this line. Nicely detailed, nicely painted. I think the color scheme looks great. Now, I will say I've only played the original Halo games, and the Ghost was always purple. So I'm assuming the red-colored Ghost must be from Infinite itself. And, I'm not super familiar with it, but I still think it looks great in this color scheme. Maybe we'll get a purple repaint later on. That will be fun. But there's a little bit of assembly required when you get this out of the box. So the guns here and the wing on the side come separate in the box. and there is a kind of little connection port on the side here that has just the little tiniest little lip of plastic that you slide the gun over top, and then this has like a peg that you pop in and then it snaps into place and keeps the guns in place. So everything's really nice and solid by the time you're done. I think it looks pretty good. You can see the cockpit here has these very tiny little moving levers, which I think is a really nice touch. I like that quite a bit. But there's not really much else to it. You have these... I'm not really sure what these are supposed to be. I don't know if they're supposed to be like gauges or connection ports, but they really just look like Wally's eyes to me. I don't really know what's going on there. It would have been nice if there were some kind of stickers or something, or maybe just a little bit of paint, just to kind of, you know, detail out the cockpit a little bit, but it's not a big deal. They did kind of paint the seat area a different color, which I appreciate, so that kind of looks like a leather seat or something like that. So there's a little bit of detail there. It would have been nice if there was a little bit more, or just, I'm not quite sure what this is supposed to be. I mean, there is paint there. You can see they did paint some red there. I just not really sure what that's supposed to be. And then you have some footrests down here. And I really like these little translucent like stands. I guess they're supposed to be like energy that's, you know, making it levitate, something like that. Really cool though. I like it. I think it works. And of course they just peg in, so you can just remove them. If you don't like the look of it, you can just unpeg all of them. No problem there. I'll show you what that looks like real quick. We'll just go ahead, unpeg all these. So if you want this guy to just... And it will kind of rest without them. It doesn't sit as even, but it can be done. But I just think it's a nice little inclusion. Again, when I was playing the game, I don't remember seeing like energy underneath it. I think they just kind of hover. But it's a fun way to include something. And I like how they make it translucent as well to kind of add to the ambiance. But yeah, it works. I think it's pretty cool. Now, the one thing where this does kind of fall short, the figure that was included is just way too big. His legs are just massive. If I try to put him in here, I mean, there's absolutely no way you could put the feet and have them rest here where they're meant to and have them actually fit in here. If you just kind of put the legs out to the side so he sits all the way down, you can see that his feet kind of drag on the bottom. I mean, he looks okay, but he's really just too big. He's too big for the Ghost. So I don't know why they didn't include like a smaller alien to ride around in here. I just think that would have been a better choice. It's still a cool figure. It's just definitely too big to ride on this vehicle, which is a shame. But if we move him off to the side and we bring in Master Chief, also from this line, he fits in like a dream. And it almost just makes me feel like this was always meant for him. I mean, a lot of times in the game, you know, you have access for Master Chief to hijack a Ghost and ride it around himself. So I almost feel like they had him in mind when designing this, because he fits in here really nicely. And he looks great. His feet kind of hit the footrests. His hands match the controls. I mean, he looks great piloting this. So it definitely works for Master Chief. And there's probably some smaller Covenant aliens, and I'm assuming the Marine figures as well would fit in here no problem. So several figures from this line can pilot this. Just the Elite that comes with it. I mean, you can fit him in there. It just doesn't look natural, and he's way too big for it. But you can still pop him in there. But Master Chief looks fantastic behind the controls. So I think this is a cool set. Not really to be used together, but for the sum of its parts. I think the Elite figure is very cool. I do have a couple loose joints, and the fact that that head can kind of pop off pretty easily. But everything connects back on and stays, and not really a problem. So I guess it's just you can simulate some battle damage or something like that. But it's a good figure. A couple loose joints aside, the detailing is great. The articulation is fantastic. I like the sword accessory that he comes with. And just overall, the design is very, very good. I like the Ghost as well. Fairly simplistic, but it does what it needs to do. It's a cool looking vehicle, very nicely detailed and painted. Has a couple moving parts. I think the controls being able to move back and forth is a nice touch. And I really enjoy the like translucent energy beam propulsion effect pieces here to kind of, you know, have a nice even stand so that it can kind of look like it's levitating, which I really appreciate. The only drawback for me, or I should say the biggest drawback, is the fact that the Elite doesn't quite fit nicely into the cockpit of the Ghost. He's just a little too big for it. His legs are just kind of massive, and even his head and his body don't quite fit in the area. But if you have a Master Chief figure, he fits really well, so I feel like it was kind of designed for him all along. He is the main character, so that would kind of make sense. And there are plenty of times in the games, throughout the years that I've played at least, where Master Chief has access to commandeer a ghost, so you can definitely simulate that here. And he looks great behind the controls, so very, very cool there. Would probably work with some of the smaller figures as well. Other aliens and certainly other soldiers in the line would probably fit in here as well, no problem. So it's definitely a nice vehicle to add to the collection, and it's definitely a nice elite figure to add to your collection. They just don't necessarily work that well together. They can work together, just not as nicely as some of the other figures do. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Let me know what you think. Please like, share, and subscribe. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and as always, thank you so much for watching.